stories that were told by our our ancestors so that they can be used to transmit history. That falls under functions or features of the narratives. So specifically, what will be set for you in KCSE, we have the genres of oral narratives. And these genres, we only have 6 genres of oral narratives. What the examiner will set for you, he or she will only set for you ogre tales, or what they're called monster stories. Then apart from that one, the examiner will set for you trickster narratives. So for these two, these ones are taught in Form 1 work. Then when you come to Form 2 work, we teach you on myths and we teach you on legends. That is Form 2 work. And then for the Form 3 work, we teach you on dilemma narratives. And the next one we teach you on etiological narratives. Etiological narratives, or what people like to call explanatory narratives. Or some books they'll call them why stories. Now, let's go to the first one, the first kind of narrative that we're handling. So number one, we look at the ogre tales. Number one, we're looking at the ogre tales. So the first thing that you have to know is how do you identify that this is an ogre story. So the first thing that you have to know is how to identify an ogre story. So here we have features of an ogre stories. Features. So under the features of ogre tales, the first one, they have ogres as key characters, or they can also be the main characters in the story. Then apart from that one, they have shape-shifting beings that can become either humans or animals at will. That is another feature of an ogre narrative. Then the third one, we say that we must have a disaster or calamity during the narrative. This means that the ogres, as they come or as they are presented into the story, they must come with a disaster or a calamity. This is because we all know that, yes, it's a narrative. Remember, most of the things are presented using symbolism. Therefore, when you have an ogre in your story, the ogre represents evil in a society. The ogre represents evil in a society. So by them representing evil, it means that whatever they're doing will come to impede the activities of the society, or it will come and destroy the activities of the society. That is why in most cases, when you have a story concerning an ogre tale, you will see that either the ogre comes, they kill people, or they make people disappear. Then apart from that one, when the ogres come, they can eat a whole village and the whole village disappears. So these are some of the key features of an ogre tale. Now, be careful. Not all narratives that have an ogre are ogre tales. So that's under note. So not all narratives with ogres are ogre tales. Some use ogres as characters, with no with no significant effect. Yes, these are very key note, because there are some people who will just jump to the conclusion that is an ogre narrative just because they have seen an ogre. If you do this, that is wrong. It can uh, cause you to fail in your exam, but it's just that it's only one thing that made you not to understand the question. Then move on to the next thing under ogre tales. Now, uh, the next part, it cuts across all narratives, but I'll use the ogre tales uh, to explain them for you to know and come into terms with what you're looking at. Now, these ones are characteristics of narratives. Now, remember these characteristics, they cut across all narratives. Characteristics, yes. They cut across all narratives, not just ogre tells. So during your revision, you'll just look at it and then you see the characteristic, and from that one, you can be able to employ it or use it in all the other narratives. So the first characteristic is something that we call an opening formula. Some books will call them characteristics, features, or stylistic devices, depending with what you have. But most of them, they'll use characteristics. So when we have an opening formula, so the main function of an opening formula, it introduces the listener to the fictitious world. The fictitious world. So, and apart from that one, it indicates it indicates that the narrative has started. That's the work of an opening formula. So an example of an opening formula, we have once upon a time. Once upon a time, that's an opening formula. Another one, we have long time ago. Long time ago, that's an opening formula. Or another one, we have, this is a common one, they once lived. That's also an opening formula. So the moment you see that opening formula, you have to know that now the narrative has begun. Now, the next thing apart from an opening formula, we have element of fantasy. Element of fantasy. Element of fantasy. Now, an element of fantasy. So, these are characters. These are characters or actions that appear in the narrative, but are not found in the real world. But they're not found in the real world. That is an element of fantasy. Now, in most cases, an element of fantasy can be presented in this manner. So here we, before I continue, have all of you written? Or I can just go on and then I'll post the notes for you to go through them at a later time. Okay, so it's like you're okay. So allow me to continue. So as I was saying, element of fantasy, these are characters or actions that appear in the narrative but are not found in the real world. They are fictions, things which do not occur in the normal environment. So an example of an element of fantasy is where we have creatures that do not exist. E.g., an ogre shows that it's fantasy because we've never seen an ogre, or we can have maybe flying